Hey there folks and yokes, and welcome to my first official video! I know this took a teensy bit of time to get out, but yeah, I really have no excuse. Middle school. I know, a horrifying two-word horror story. Even Stephen King would be shaking in his boots. Middle school, as we all know, was a time filled with relentless cringe, such as FNAF Gacha Life videos, and even more Gacha Life videos. No? Was that just me? Well, anyway, middle school is cringe, and you know what else is cringe? Romantasy. I know that's a really dangerous thing to say, considering that's all people who read want, but please hear me out. Conceptually, it is not the worst. I love fantasy, but the tropes that constantly get recycled with no originality is getting kind of boring. With that said, I'm just gonna get right into it. Who even needs a well-thought-out intro anyway? To give you a general overview of what the book is about, it starts with 4 main characters. Tessa, our basic romance protagonist, tough, but not tough enough so that the male main character can't come swoop in and save her, and has an entire personality based off the men in her life. The only thing interesting about her is that she's a doctor, and that's something her father had to teach her. Her morals are contradictory and flimsy at best, and while the book claims she's strong, she spends most of her time being weak and in an insane amount of distress. Literally, her entire character is about her father and the male main character, aka Weston Lark. He's a thief, wears a mask, and is kind of sassy, that's it. They both live in a horrible society where only the rich are able to survive this horrible illness because they're the only ones that can afford the high prices of medical care. Which, I know, absolutely wild concept, isn't it? I mean, can you even imagine living in a world like that? Right? That's crazy, right? Anyway, they're basically like Robin Hood if he was 2 people, and said 2 people were just ungodly freaked out. The 2 other main characters are the supposed villains. Harrison, the evil king, and the worst human being conceivably possible, Prince Korik. Look, saying you want someone to stub their toe every day for the rest of their life so they slowly go insane is wrong. But by God, do I want Korik to stub each of his toes every day for the rest of his life so he slowly goes insane. Don't worry, you'll understand why later, but I'd rather focus on one side of the story. This story is split into 2 points of view, Tessa and Korik. I think doing multiple POVs tends to be risky, as a lot of the time the reader won't be able to tell who's who, and that'll end up highlighting the fact that your characters are basically the same person. That didn't actually happen that much to me in this book, so points for that. And before I continue, I just want to clarify that if you like this book, I don't care. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you've never read it, then I highly recommend checking it out for yourself and creating your own thoughts on it. And if you use this video as an excuse to bully the author, I will be figuring out where you live, keying your car, and stealing your pet, because you and I both know they deserve better. Tessa starts us off decently strong. We know that she's a thief, and we know she's in the middle of a heist. We don't really know anything about her specifically, though, other than the fact that she has an apothecary bag from, you guessed it, her father. I know it sounds like I'm being kind of harsh to her, but again, this introduction tells us so much about these men, but nothing about her. Except for the fact that she's apparently dumb and needs Weston Lark to do everything for her. She literally couldn't even comprehend that the spotlights were there to spot her. The thief. Anyway, she gets down from this wall and spends most of this chapter glazing Weston Lark because that's how women exist to do, right? And yes, I will be full naming Weston Lark this entire book. I refuse to give him any sense of familiarity. I'd rather shit myself to death like a newborn baby in the medieval era. She spends a bit running through the forest, or the wilds, as this book likes to call it. While she does so, she's probably tripping over her pathetic legs in comparison to Weston Lark, or whatever the fuck, and then reaches their workshop. Weston Lark, the man she spent all this time glazing, isn't there, and she just like full on has a panic attack after a few minutes. Anyway, of course Weston Lark comes back, and he's an asshole to her for the rest of the chapter, and then we just move on. Next chapter is technically a Korik chapter, but like I said before, I hate him. and his chapters don't really matter until after page 100, so I'm gonna skip all of them. In my personal opinion, this entire thing could have been written from Tessa's perspective, and it would have been so much easier to understand. Only reason that's not the case is because the author recognizes that she's not really that interesting as a protagonist. Anyway, in the next Tessa chapter, a child dies in her arms. I think I made this somewhat apparent earlier, but what these people are stealing is medicine and giving it out because no one can afford it except the filthy rich. And in this case scenario, they were a little too late to give this kid his medicine. Truly tragic, even though we've never been introduced to this kid. To add on to this horrible, tragic event, the mother screams and tries whipping the Night Patrol's ass, getting her killed as well. And what does Tessa do about this? Be horny on maid. Weston Lark just happens to stand somewhat close to her, and she starts sitting so hard that she forgets about the fact that 2 people just died in front of her. 2 people, which, by the way, she was perfectly capable of saving. Yes, you could argue that there was no way for her to know about the kid, but at least give her some residual guilt that makes her character somewhat interesting. Or have him be angry at Weston Lark and the fact that he straight up let that woman die in front of him? Tessa is completely unchanged by this event. Why is it here? I certainly don't care about it. Anyway, the next chapter is her selling fake medicine for a scammer whom she hates. I have no idea why she's doing this job when she's apparently a decently good apothecary who also wants to help people. It's never explained why she has to work here. There are plenty of shop owners like Mistress Solomon, though. People who can't cure the fevers, but who claim to help with the symptoms. I wouldn't work for a true swindler, but Mistress Solomon seems to mean well. Homegirl, home slice, homebrew D&D campaign. I do not care how well-meaning she seems. What you just described is a swindler, especially with help in quotations. Whatever. The only thing tolerable about this job is the fact that her friend works here, Kari, a woman who somehow manages to be even more basic than Tessa. Are these actual humans I'm reading about, or white people food? Because they are so bland, I'm worried I might have singed my taste buds off. They then proceed to fail the Bechdel test almost immediately by talking about Weston Lark, a man that Kari doesn't even fucking know. And that's it. Nothing important happens. Oh yeah, a bunch of smugglers are going to be killed tomorrow. Does that count? Anyway, she has another panic attack in the workshop. When she gets there, Weston Lark calls her an idiot, which will be the only time I agree with this man, and the chapter ends. Next chapter, the people get executed, a few of them escape. Blah, blah, blah. Let's hurry this up. I don't have all day to do this chapter by chapter. I'm just doing the important parts now. After all that boring nonsense, Weston Lark goes out to deliver the medicine on his own because apparently Tessa can't tonight because he thinks it's too dangerous for her. And I quote, "I'm faster. Don't look at me like that, you know I am." Not very feminist of you now, is it, Weston Lark? As punishment for being a gross misogynist, he is captured and then his eyes are gouged out while he's still alive, and he's strung up on the gate for Tessa to see the next morning. I think that's a lovely place to end this first part, don't you? Alright, prepare yourself, because here's where things start to get less interesting. Next chapter is what you expect. Tessa mourning, this can't be right, lying about being pregnant? And making a very dangerous mistake at her job and shoving that mistake into her bag. Hint, hint. Despite this, her boss sends her on a trip to the royal sector delivering something, even though the people there can likely afford better medicine. The royal sector, or where the palace is, must be experiencing some form of gas leak, as Tessa does something I didn't even think someone with a brain injury could come up with. Out of nowhere, she decides, hey, let's sneak into the palace for no reason despite the fact that I can. Have I mentioned this kingdom is notorious for its Danganronpa-like execution and that she has a pocket filled with what is basically poison? She has absolutely no plan, and immediately gets caught, what a shocker, and brought to the prince, which brings us to our second and somehow worse POV. Before you start developing any sense of sympathy for this man, no, not for this man, for this stain upon our pure and beautiful earth, I want to let you know that the first scene we get of him is him running a country because the king is too much of a baby while wearing a diamond-encrusted watch while in a kingdom where most people don't even know how to read an analog clock. As much as this book tells me otherwise, he is not a victim of the system, he is the system.
Yes, his parents are dead, but I do not care in any way, shape, or form. So are Tessa's, and she isn't even as much of a bitch as this guy is. Oh, and by the way, serious for a second, trigger warning for mentions of SA for a while. I'll put the timestamp in case you want to skip that. There's no shame if that's the case. Tessa ends up passing out, and when she comes to, she isn't wearing the same clothes that she used to and has a sack over her head. Already, I fucking hate this. Prince Court comes in, takes the sack off her head, and pins her to the wall. Her first thought is that she's going to be raped. He doesn't actually, but the fact that the author put that in is gross to me. I do know what they were trying to do here with showing us why this man is evil instead of telling us that he is, though there are other things you could have done. Rape isn't a topic that you just throw in randomly to make a character seem scarier. It deserves much more weight than that. And it really rubs me the wrong way when the author then tries to backtrack by saying, oh, well, he didn't really do anything, and look, here he is punishing some other guy for essaying a woman. It's a very sensitive topic just thrown in for shock value and to speed up the villain's redemption arc and make him seem more intimidating at the same time, which is even more weird because this guy ends up being endgame. That's right, this is the person that Tessa ends up with romantically at the end of the book. And I really do appreciate when an author decides to delve into these topics, because rarely people do and handle them correctly. We should write more stories about SA and SA victims. Just doing it this way feels wrong. To me, at least. Again, you're allowed to have your own opinions on this. For those of you who skipped, welcome back. If you want to know what you missed, apparently the evil Prince Cork ends up being endgame. Confused? Good, so is everyone else. You're back on track. Now, I know what you must be thinking. What the fuck happened? From the way this was set up, I thought Weston Lark was going to be endgame. Well, worry not, because in this book you can have your cake and eat it too. No, not because there's polyamory, but because Weston Lark and Prince Korg are the same person. Yep, same exact person, and they have been this whole time. The guy who's killing people for stealing medicine was stealing the medicine. And apparently Prince Cork just hung a random guy up on the wall, and Tessa thought it was him. God, I hated this twist even when I was in middle school. It's like something I would have written. The author is trying so hard to speed up the enemies to lovers narrative instead of actually putting in the work. It's blatantly obvious. I'm gonna be super honest, the rest of this book is boring. There's some mentions of revolutions and such, but most of it is just politics, ew. And Tessa getting closer, which, again, ew. Heterosexual romance is so gross and unnatural. God. So I'll skip all that. To sum it all up, despite her very obvious intent to commit a crime, Cork manages to convince everyone that Tessa is here to help with the sickness because she's an apothecary, and guess what? She doesn't figure out shit. Well done, gang. What a smart idea. Because the narrative incorrectly assumes that Cork is no longer the villain, the real antagonist is revealed to be one of the nobles who is in complete control of all of the medicine. What a surprise! I can't believe this would end up being problematic. Cork, dude, as the leader of the kingdom, because let's be real, the king isn't doing dick besides wishing he could suck some, why would you allow this? The only way this would go on for so long was if Cork was endorsing it and somehow benefiting. But it's made very clear that he hates this. Yet he still allows it. He regularly lets Alessander, the noble, heighten these prices on the claim that he needs it for defense against the smugglers, and a whole list of other reasons. And this is not just me yelling about shit that I know nothing about. I have a whole goddamn list as to how Cork could deal with this bullshit. First, it's already been confirmed that the wealthy are taking too much, and that they have also been getting allocated doses. If that was okay with the councils at first, then why don't you stop giving the doses to the wealthy and instead to the poor, and let everyone else just buy it for themselves? Or just boycott him. Literally, just boycott him. That's so easy. You have a whole other sector who I'm sure would love to jump on the possibility of being the kingdom's only supplier, and because Alessander is a greedy fuck, I'm sure he'll come begging for your money back with much lower and reasonable pricing. Oh, but what if the other council ends up siding with Alessander? Wow! Gosh, that's really impressive, Cork. I'm surprised I can hear you with Alessander's dick in your mouth. Sorry, I know that joke was very gross, but I came up with it and felt like it was too good not to include. Especially because my mom ships these two. No, I am not kidding. I came up to her to complain about them, and the first thing she asked me was if the two were in love, so... Corsair canon, I guess. Anyway, I'm sure you're all very confused as to what actually happened in this book, but I don't care, I'm gonna wrap this up. At this point of reading, my right hand was aching from gripping the tiny number of pages left, and I was so desperate to get this over with. Fun fact, I never ended up finishing this book. Yep. I know that's sort of the whole point, but my hubris is bigger than the sun that made Icarus its bitch, so I say fuck it, we ball. That, and I have read this book start to finish multiple times in middle school, which must be the most pathetic thing I've ever done, and I have a panic attack every time I order food. After hours of being stuck in this singular setting for an entire 5/6 of the book, my easily understimulated brick of a brain was granted with something actually interesting. Korik and Tessa both decide to lie to everyone about Korik's identity yet again! Because she's suddenly chill with that, despite the whole Weston Lark thing fucking her up. I'm sure this won't cause any problems. Right? And by that I mean it definitely will. Hopefully. Because I'm going to be reading the second book next, and I know they're going to give me an interesting cliffhanger in this one. Right? The two sneak out of the palace, encounter a bunch of grown men bullying a child for daring to pick flowers, and they kill all three of them. Yes, even Tessa, who's repeatedly told us throughout the book that murder is wrong, and the one thing she can't forgive. Now I know what you must be thinking, this is going to be good, because maybe Tessa will get some interesting development. Nope! This is another one of those things that's just never brought up again. Ever, it's like it never happened. Even though it feels like they've been building up to this arc for the whole book. I would genuinely throw myself into the ocean if it meant taking this down with me. Anyway, the two of them make it out, and then suddenly Lachlan appears. Now, I know I have not told you about Lachlan, because again, I am very bad at this. He's basically just poor and angry most of the time, and also hates Korik, which, just like me for real. When he shows up, he decides to make like a milkshake and bring all the boys to his yard specifically to beat Korik's ass. Which, rude, why didn't you guys invite me? I could've brought snacks. And by snacks, I mean me. Because I probably should have used this time to explain Lachlan earlier. Bam, all of a sudden the King's Guard come in, spears blazing, because apparently they've invented light bulbs before guns, which makes no sense from a technological standpoint. Shooting thing go boom has existed centuries before John Lightbulb was even a thought in someone's head. Tessa and Korik don't even bother running, which is the only time I think they're being smart. Because, I mean, they're obviously the victim here. They have blood all over them and have been tied up. Apparently not. They're getting arrested, and it's not even for killing that man like a dog in the street earlier. Victim blaming at its finest is because one of them's a woman. Not even like 5 minutes later, Korik is released from prison, and so is Tessa. Because nothing bad can happen to these people, and no, their backstories don't count. Their backstories are stupid. Not only that, but Alexander has already revealed his evil plan and has now been imprisoned. Truly a brilliant criminal mastermind, and not just a lazy device to make Korik seem better by comparison. What a scary villain. If you're wondering what said evil plan is, it's to tell Korik to his face that he's planning to overthrow them. How exactly? You tell me! Yeah, so not only does he not have a real plan, but he also reveals said non-plan to the Prince of the Kingdom and the King's personal guard, who's like standing just like right there a few feet away from him. I can grab him and pull him over here if you want. Again, what an incredible evil mastermind. This is somehow worse than Korik's original plan. Another thing, Tessa revealed all their treasonous crimes to the king, and instead of killing them like literally everyone else, he decides that this time is fine, so good for them, I guess. Suddenly, the author realizes that all of her conflicts are being resolved way too easily, and decides, you know what, let's just burn the place to the ground. A group of rebels breaks in and starts shooting arrows at everyone, killing no one, unfortunately, and they all escape with their lives. They have a few soldiers on their side still, who I have to assume are clinically stupid, because why would you help people who are very clearly the worst? With this tiny cast of people on their side, they think, hey, I know we only have a few people on our side right now, but what if we tried riding horses into fire and charging all the rebels at once? So that's what they do. And it somehow works out fine for them. The rebels get it out of their system by killing 2 of the nobles, and then after Tessa gives them a "no, this isn't you" speech, collector style, one would assume the next book would be spent picking out a coffin for her. But instead they're like, you know, even though they killed hundreds of her loved ones, you're low-key right, just don't do that again, haha. And they just give up. Oh, and Alexander, despite everyone hating him, is still no longer in prison. He literally committed treason. You can get another council. Please, just kill him already! Instead of doing that, or I don't know, fixing the massive amounts of damage, Tessa's just like, haha, I love you, and Cork's like, no, stop, haha, and then they kiss and then the book is over. I am so tired. So, what did we learn from that harrowing experience? Well, the author seems to be trying to tell us that people who are oppressing us, stealing our money, and killing us slowly are low-key right and kind of hot. If evil man, then why so sexy? Why so husband shape? But what I've learned from this book is that you will never be able to fix him. But he can and will make you worse. Anyway, that's it. I'm sure you're eager to get onto something else because I sure am. I would say check out my other videos, but I only have like one that isn't a really cringy gotcha or anime short, so just forget about that. Also, if you got this far, I know it's cliche, but please like the video. It's not that hard and it'll make me very happy. And subscribe if you want. To be honest, the idea of having a shit ton of subscribers kinda scares me, so you really don't have to do that one. Also, this book has a sequel, so if you want me to suffer for your entertainment, then let me know. Okay, anyway, thank you, bye.